This podcast is brought to you by Flipper, a marketplace to buy and sell websites, stores, and digital real estate. Plot your own path. Become a boss by buying a small online business at Flipper. Simply visit flipper.com/techtalks for a free consultation and 50% off fees. That's FLIPPA, flipper.com/techtalks. If you do visit, let me know how you get on. But now, let's get the show started.
Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, and a big thank you to Renato Lopez Diaz, who emailed in to the show to say, congratulations on your podcast. I find it super inspiring. And he goes on to say that he came across the show for the first time and it blew his mind. It's not quite the intention I had with this podcast. But he said he's from El Salvador and lived in Europe for the past 6 years. And now he's back in the tropics, but already looking forward to the next leap. And he tells me that the ongoing crisis has actually changed his projects and halted some of his other ventures, but he does see all this as an opportunity and loving the challenge. So thank you so much, Renato, for taking the time to email into the podcast, because people like you are why I record a different interview every single day of the week. And if it helps you see opportunities instead of challenges ahead, that can only be a great thing, can't it? And here we are now, of course, in June, where lockdowns are being lifted, and thankfully our old normal is returning rather than the new normal. And as we come out of this period of reflection, I've noticed a few things, and from my own personal perspective, it's increasingly becoming my inability to just sit in a chair and daydream and avoid the temptation to listen to a podcast, listen to some music, react to notifications, endlessly scroll down a smartphone screen. Just sit down and let my mind wander without reacting or reaching to anything on my phone. So with that in mind, it should be of no surprise that stress-related and mental and physical health issues are on the rise. But what I do find interesting is that despite an abundance of mindfulness apps and the rise in popularity of meditation and yoga, effective relaxation is harder than ever to achieve. And today's guest has designed and developed this small pebble-like wearable that can offer users deep, immediate relaxation to help fight everyday stress and anxieties, but in just 10 minutes a day. So when I hear about a new wearable that targets the vagus nerve to improve health and reduce stress, I wanted to find out more. And I also discovered before I invited them on that Sensate is what it's called, was originally created for PTSD sufferers, but is now available for everyone. So I wanted to find out more about this game-changing Infrasound, which I believe is a low-frequency vibration that transmits sound at multiple frequencies for immediate relaxation. So naturally, I want to explore how this technology is being used to reduce stress. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to London here in the UK so we can get Stefan onto the podcast right now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Neil, hello. Good to be here. So I'm Stefan. I'm inventor of the Sensate technology, and I'm founder of BioSelf Technology as well, which is the company. I'm a lifelong meditator, and Dad taught me and my brother to meditate when we were both very young. So this has informed my practice and very much my mission now ever since, and really is what's brought me to where I am today.
And I'd imagine that it's more important now than ever before. But can I ask that you set the scene and tell me a little bit more about how stress-related mental and physical health issues are all on the rise? But despite an abundance of mindful apps there and people leveraging technology to make it easier, and the rise in those popularity of meditation and yoga and effective relaxation, it's actually harder than ever to achieve.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I'd say that what the world has been living through over the last few weeks and months has really shone a spotlight on what I believe is the greatest problem the world faces today, which is the pandemic of anxiety and fear gripping the world. What I can see is that we've been papering over the cracks for decades now. And there's this kind of mental health tidal wave that's been building up under the surface. And the COVID crisis has really ripped away this veneer that we've been using to paper over these cracks. And it's taken away many of the things that people have been using to keep themselves going, and exposed the real vulnerability and overwhelm that a lot of people are facing and feeling. And this is seriously material, as it's, pretty much all the crises the world is facing will require some form of human action if we're going to alter their course. So the environment, plastics, equality, food safety, water, all of these need human beings to make better long-term decisions that are not based on short-term fear and anxiety, right? So hence my mission is to enable the greatest possible number of people globally to be able to increase stress resilience, as this really is the route to mastering anxiety and fear. As you say, meditation is known to be effective for this, but what we're finding, and what I found particularly in my practice over the last 10 years, is that meditation itself is harder and harder for people to do. So as you've noticed, it's actually harder than ever to switch off for people to calm the mind because of, I think, the always-on kind of soundbite nature of information. So this is what we're really addressing with the Sensate technology.
So true in what you're saying there. And I'm also noticing as that lockdown is being lifted all across the world, people's anxiety and fear is increasing even more because people don't want to leave the house and starting to question if they really do need to go out. And if they do end up at a supermarket or a store somewhere, they even feel anxious just having to go and talk to a cashier when they've not actually spoken to anyone for 3 months. But so there's so much going on here in 2020. But I've got to ask, what is the story behind you designing and developing this small pebble-like wearable?
Well, I mean, I've been practicing integrated healthcare for 30 years as founder of New Medicine Group in Harley Street. We're the UK's main integrated healthcare team. But I've been teaching people to breathe, relax, and meditate for all that time. And as I mentioned, I've really noticed in the last 10 years in particular that traditional techniques were starting to not work anymore. So whereas a few years ago I had a practice in the city of London, so pretty much a practice made up of stressed hedge fund managers and the like. And whereas a few years ago I could give them techniques and teach them meditation or breathing exercises, these became less and less effective, and people's ability to just sit or be silent without feeling uncomfortable or even anxious had increased. So I faced a bit of a crisis. I realized what I was doing was wasting my time and people's money. So I almost gave up, actually. They came very close to giving up. I've been trained in quite a purist, if you like, meditation tradition. But then I realized that rather than give up, it was really incumbent upon me and the experience and the skills I have to provide an alternative solution for these millions of people who needed a solution to stress resilience and to reduce anxiety, but the techniques and the tools and the technology available wasn't working. So rather than give up, I looked into technology that could help the majority of these people. And we started using a technology that was trialed by the US Army for veterans with PTSD and trauma. This worked incredibly well. We ended up incorporating this into all our treatment protocols for anxiety, for insomnia, chronic pain, trauma, depression. And one day while I was actually using the technology myself, I had this kind of eureka moment where I realized that we could lose most of the hardware involved in the clinical version and have the same impact by turning the body itself into the hardware. And that's kind of the moment that Sensate was born, really. And since then, we've developed and tested the Sensate Pebble, which is what's on the market now. And that first went out to production last year. So we have a cohort of users that have been using it for over 12 months now, to fabulous feedback.
Now, one of the things that really fascinates me about your story there is your road to creating this, because you did say that your traditional techniques were beginning to fail. And something I always say is that our addiction to technology has almost killed our ability to daydream, because we don't just sit in a chair and let our mind wander anymore. So I'm curious, when you said traditional techniques were failing, is it that same reason that people just can't sit down?
It's yes, is the short answer, and of course, it's more complicated than that is the longer answer. Yeah, I mean, we have become like our technology. Attention spans have actually not decreased much as people think; they've actually increased hugely. But we're now splitting our attention between multiple items at the same time. So there is this problem of what's called continual partial attention. It's been discussed at Harvard University. There's been some research into that. Multitasking is a myth. Nobody can multitask, women or men. What some people can do better than others is do one thing less badly and another thing less badly at the same time. Some people can, but some people can't even do that. So as long as we're dividing our attention between things, we're not focusing on anything properly. And if a lot of my work is based in the tradition of mindfulness, the work developed by John Kabat-Zinn back at University of Massachusetts, and mindfulness is essentially the ability to be present with your current experience, and to not feel anxious about it and not need to change it. On the other hand, we can flip that and say that anxiety is awareness of your present moment experience and being uncomfortable with it, so wanting to change it. So the development of mindfulness is an incredibly important technique that's been shown in research to be useful for anxiety, insomnia, chronic pain, etc. The problem is it requires really quite a sophisticated degree of focus and concentration on the part of the user. So the very people that need it most are least able to access it. And there's also what I call the dark side of mindfulness, which we've really been seeing over the last 10 years in the clinic a lot, which is there's a significant proportion of people who, when they try to practice mindfulness exercises, when they try to relax or notice their breathing, even when they try to use some of the very popular apps that are now available to help people meditate, they actually feel worse. And a proportion of them will actually even experience anxiety or a panic attack. And I can't tell you how many times a day I hear somebody say to me, I've tried to meditate and it didn't work for me, or I've tried such and such an app and I just sat there feeling uncomfortable waiting for it to finish. So what became incredibly obvious to me is that the current solutions weren't working, including the technological solutions. And it became obvious as well that we had to use technology to fight the problem of too much technology. Because everyone's got a phone in their pocket. We're very technologically, we like technology, we like hardware. We don't like paying for apps, and we don't tend to use apps. So apps alone don't appear to change behavior. Whereas objects that we interact with, and which can have a physical impact on our body as well as a mental impact, do seem to have the capacity to change behavior. So when developing Sensate, there were 3 boxes it absolutely had to tick from a clinical perspective. And I knew they had to tick these boxes if they were going to be used by people over a period of time and lead to behavior change. And feeling pleasurable and enjoyable and engaging on literally the first 10-minute occasion is the first big box. Because interestingly, even if something works incredibly well, if people don't notice the physical change immediately, if it doesn't feel nice to use immediately, they'll tend to abandon it. People had to finish a session and be able to stand up and say, I can feel the difference, because of people's patience around interactions and interventions is very short. And it had to also show verifiable subjective and objective change when measuring biomarkers, so that the people could really prove to themselves that an actual real impact was happening and it wasn't just a placebo effect. So we know the whole Sensate technology was designed around fulfilling those 3 promises, and that's what we've managed to achieve.
I've had countless emails from listeners over the last few weeks talking about their fears and concerns around job security, while also seeing their interest rates on their savings drop considerably. And as a result, many are beginning to look at how they can invest in their future in an uncertain time. Could digital assets be the answer? Now, you might remember that I spoke to Blake Hutchinson, CEO at Flipper, on episode 1194 about how to buy digital assets and websites. In a nutshell, Flipper is a marketplace that you can buy and sell websites, stores, and digital real estate that are just ready to go. So if you do have dreams of running your own successful online business, or perhaps you're looking to exit your existing online business, my friends at Flipper can help you buy and sell. So if you're interested and want to find out more, please visit flipper.com/tech talks. That's FLIPPA.com/tech talks for a free consultation and also 50% off all fees. But now, back to the interview. For everyone listening that are hearing about Sensate for the very first time, I just ask that you tell me a little bit more about exactly what it is and how it's actually helping users, or anybody listening. It can help them enjoy deep, immediate relaxation to help them fight everyday stresses and anxieties in just that 10 minutes per day. Because I think that is phenomenal if you can achieve that in 10 minutes a day. But can you tell me a little bit more about how you do that?
Yeah, I mean, we designed, we had 20 minutes a day in mind when we designed it, but we actually found that we were getting the biomarker changes after 10 minutes. So it's even better. Wow. So Sensate is a palm-sized device. It fits on the chest. You just lie back and pop it on your chest, and it emits low-frequency infrasound to make the body resonate via bone conduction. So infrasound is just the opposite end of the spectrum to ultrasound. Yeah, we all know ultrasound is used for imaging. We know whether you're looking at the body or a baby. But infrasound, so low frequency resonance, hasn't been explored for some reason anywhere near as much. On the other hand, human beings have found ways to produce infrasound in their body for thousands of years. So, ever since we first sat around a campfire, kind of humming and omming and singing and chanting at the moon, we've made ourselves feel good and feel safe and regulated our nervous system through making the chest vibrate. And if you look at, all kinds of traditional techniques, from omming, chanting, rhythmic breathing, use of things like sound bowls, sacred music, the stuff produced by Monteverdi and Bach, these are all designed to produce resonant frequencies in the chest and make it vibrate. By doing that, we have an impact on the heart, all the tissues and the viscera that pass through that area, the heart, the lungs, the diaphragm, the abdomen. And from our point of view, most specifically, the vagus nerve. So we're most fascinated by and interested in how to help people increase the tone of the vagus nerve, because that really does seem to be the master signal that drives the autonomic nervous system. And it's the autonomic nervous system that goes wrong when people are hypervigilant, when people are overwhelmed, when people are overstressed and have poor stress resiliency. So there is a direct correlation between vagal nerve tone, stress resilience, and all the markers that we know go with that, such as heart rate variability. So heart rate variability and subjective well-being in particular were the markers that we used as our benchmarks when testing the efficacy of Sensate in clinic. And this is where we noticed remarkable and sustainable changes of people using the technology versus not using the technology. I mean, I spent 10 years working with clinical infrasound, and we've created what we call a resonance engine, which is capable of producing these very low frequency sound waves when used via bone conduction on the sternal bone, the chest bone. And it's the thoracic cavity that then amplifies this signal and turns something which you can't hear into a palpable, a physical sensation. And this works on the kind of lower end of the brainstem, so the kind of lizard brain, as we call it, which is where the vagus nerve originates. So the vagus nerve goes from the lower brain down through the chest and gut right into the gut. So it is the brain gut connection that we talk about, this kind of vagus superhighway. The way we write, we spent a lot of time, over 3 years, working out how to construct the tracks, the sessions, or the soundscapes, as we call them. So all the tracks which come on the app are completely unique and written for the device, for the platform, and they combine inaudible low-frequency orchestration with audible music, which you hear via the headphones. And the audible music also has a number of kind of trade secret elements written into it, which have a neural processing effect. So the combination of the very low frequency felt sense aspect of the track with the audible track in the headphones produces very quick turnaround feelings of well-being and also an elevation to specific markers, as I say, which we associate with long-term longevity and well-being, such as heart rate variability.
So you put Sensate on the chest, pop on the headphones and a pair with the free app, and then choose from the collection of meticulously composed soundscapes. But can you tell me a little bit more about the technology that makes all that possible without revealing your trade secrets or secret sauce there, just so people understand the kind of tech that makes all this possible?
Yeah, so there's within the Sensate Pebble itself that sits on the chest, we've developed what we call an infrasound resonance engine. Which is capable of producing low-frequency sounds in a very low register, so below the hearing threshold. Infrasound is typically below 20 hertz. On its own, you can't feel that or hear that. It's when you put it on the chest and it combines the kind of hollow cavity of the thorax through bone conduction on the sternum, that generates a signal which the body translates into whole-body vibrotactile sensation.
And am I right in saying that it also uses patent-pending novel technology, which has been developed and been in operation in a Harley Street clinic for over the last 3 years? Is that right?
Yeah, so there's a patent pending on the Sensate technology, which is for the process of vagus nerve stimulation via bone conduction on the chest, but also for the software side, the algorithm, which is a biofeedback loop. So we actually use the signal that we can pick up from the body to generate the infrasound content itself. So it becomes a very small feedback loop where we're noticing change and then using that neurological change to play back the sounds to improve the outcomes even further. Sensate was developed, as I've mentioned, from a technology that we've been using in clinic for many years, but which obviously was only available to really quite a small number of people, it being an upmarket Harley Street clinic. My interest now is only in impact. I believe the only way to change the world and to have a positive impact on all the kind of crises the world might be facing is to enable the largest possible number of people to be able to control their own stress and anxiety at will. And whereas some people are able to do that using classical techniques like meditation, the fact is that for normal people, average people, who are living a normally stressed life, it's incredibly difficult to use those techniques because they take so long to learn and they're so hard to do. So technology really is the only viable solution for most people to get the benefits of meditation-like activity.
And I'm curious, what kind of feedback have you received from users? Do you get to hear many stories there on how it's helped people?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what keeps us going, to be honest. When it's got tough, which it has over the last 5 years, it's our user feedback that absolutely keeps us going. We get a lot of spontaneous, completely unsolicited emails from people of the kind of "you've changed my life" type of variety. People who have had medical problems and particular symptoms for many years, which they've had treatment for and not been able to get anywhere with, or the treatment has been too invasive or produced side effects, and they've used Sensate and then they've told us their symptoms have changed, which is lovely. So although it's a non-medical technology, obviously we are looking very much to improve people's well-being, to relieve suffering, and the kind of things that people report. I mean, obviously feeling a very, very instant change to their relaxation level. And relaxation is interesting, isn't it? You often don't realize how anxious or stressed you were until you feel more relaxed and you have something to compare it with. So for a lot of people, the kind of relaxation effect which Sensate can produce for them is a revelation. And once you've had that kind of that moment, then and it's possible to feel like that, then it's easier to build on that. Sleep is also one of the main things that people feedback to us that they've had dramatic improvements with. This is their own subjective experience, but a lot of our people are also using other devices, other technology, whether it's apps or Apple Watches or the Oura Ring, etc. So a lot of people are reporting subjective change, but a lot of people also are measuring change, and they tell us about those results. People's resting heart rates tend to go down. They experience less discomfort in the chest that might be associated with anxiety or panic attacks. Blood pressure will often normalize. And just, we mustn't underestimate the importance of the subjective effects, the kind of mental health effects. So feeling less anxious, feeling happier, feeling profoundly more calm, improved focus. These are as important to us and to our users as the more objective numbers-based data that people tell us about.
And I love what you're doing here and how you're making technology to help people build this stress resiliency. But I've got to ask, what's next for BioSelf Technology? Because you do have a much larger mission here going on. So I'm curious, is there anything else in the pipeline?
Yes, we're very, very focused on the Sensate device. We've already shown that there's a need for it and that it has an impact and effect, which very few other things seem to have the ability to provide. But we're now we're building the team. We're scaling up to increase our impact in North America, which, as you can probably imagine, is our biggest growth area. North America now accounts for more than half our sales, having been only 10% of our sales last year. So we have a roadmap for product, roadmap for service. There's a science roadmap. There's a research roadmap, and we're enlarging the IP portfolio over the next couple of years. Obviously working on further patents and further IP. But the primary mission is to increase the functions and features and the value of the Sensate device itself. So, and we can do that mostly through the app. So the app content is entirely free. We will be offering a premium version of that for users that want to take things to the next level. Including different content and programs and modules for specific conditions or problems. So we're building a community of users. We already have an incredibly loyal and generous community, and that's what we're going to be building on with the services that we can offer through the app as well as the device over the next year.
And for anyone listening that wants to find out more information about your empathic sensory technology and how it can help them, can you just point them in the direction of where they can find you online, or equally contact your team if they've got any questions?
Sure. The main website is getsensate.com, www.getsensate.com. And we have an Indiegogo campaign running for another few days. So if you either go to getsensate.com, you'll see a link, or you can go to the Indiegogo and just type in Sensate in the search box and you'll find us. And currently we're 40% off for another week or two. I think it is 10 days, which will be the cheapest, lowest price opportunity that anyone's ever going to get to grab a Sensate. There is, of course, you can contact us through the website. Of course, there's an email address there.
Well, I'll add all those links to the blog post that will accompany this episode. But like I said a few minutes ago, I love how you're making technology to help people build stress resiliency. I think it's so important right now. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time to come on here and share your story. So thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Neil. It's a pleasure to share the mission and share the impact we're trying to have with as many people as possible.
I love how BioSelf Technology has developed pioneering and clinically validated wearable technology that's offering a real solution for a time-poor generation to the exponentially growing stress pandemic. And I think more now than ever before, the world needs a shortcut to emotional regulation in this time of global crisis. Because regular relaxation and meditation are well established as the most effective ways to manage stress, much more so than just taking a pill. However, few people have the time to learn or even practice that important skill. So it's great to hear about Sensate and this paradigm-shifting wearable device that is aiming to decelerate stress in real time and was actually developed and in operation in a Harley Street clinic in London over the last 3 years. with impressive results too. So for those reasons alone, I will be checking out the Indiegogo campaign, and I will post links over on my website, techblogwriter.co.uk. But I'm curious, how do you de-stress? Do you use technology? Do you not use technology at all? And do you have a different technique? Whatever it is, I want to hear about them on this podcast. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, or follow me on Instagram at Neil C. Hughes. Let me know how you find your inner zen, and maybe together we can all de-stress. That sounds like my kind of plan. So I'm going to take a nice relaxing lie down in the sunshine now, soak up some vitamin D, and I'll return again tomorrow with another guest. So thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.